They say every quiet neighborhood has a secret it's trying real hard to hide. I used to think that was just something people said to make suburbs sound less boring. Then I moved to Riverbend Ridge, a place so clean and polished you could probably eat off the sidewalks, and I realized some secrets don't hide. They wear uniforms, carry clipboards, and roll around on golf carts acting like they own the whole damn world. I didn't move there looking for trouble. Truth is, I was running from it. 20 years in uniform will knock something loose in you, something you don't notice until it's too late. Constant tension, constant responsibility, constant people assuming you're bulletproof, when really you're just tired. That's why I left the force and bought the little cedar house on Willow Trace. I wanted to be nobody for a while. I wanted to cook dinner without a radio on my hip. I wanted to wake up and remember who I was before I spent my life breaking up other people's chaos. For the first 10 days, it actually worked. I mowed my lawn, fixed a loose shutter, learned the names of the dogs on my street. People waved politely, like the kind of folks who practiced friendliness in the mirror. And I waved back, thinking maybe for the first time in my life, peace wouldn't feel temporary. Then the knock came. It was a Saturday morning, warm, bright, the smell of bacon still hanging in the kitchen. I opened the door with a smile that died halfway through forming. 3 guys stood on my porch in matching navy polos that said RRA Compliance Unit. Riverbend Ridge Association. They weren't smiling. The tallest one stepped forward. "Morning," he said like a man who'd never had one. "We need to inspect your property." "For what?" I asked. "Violation under Section 4F. Unauthorized equipment." I blinked. "Equipment like what?" The tall one shrugged. "You tell us." Now, I've dealt with every type of fake authority there is. Men with clipboards, men with badges they printed in their basements, men who speak in codes only they understand. These guys had that look. Overconfident, half-trained, hungry. Still, I kept my voice even. "You're not coming inside." The short guy with the thick beard scoffed. "Not how things work here, pal. Everyone cooperates." I didn't answer. I just closed the door. Calmly. Slowly. Maybe too slowly, because one of them muttered behind it, "New guy's gonna be a problem." And just like that, my quiet life started cracking. It leaked. First, a yellow slip appeared in my mailbox. Then a warning taped to my garage. Then another knock, late at night. Same uniforms, same tone, same demand to inspect. Every time I refused, their voices got sharper. The golf cart started parking at the end of my driveway. Not driving by. Parking. Just sitting there with the headlights pointed at my house, like some kind of budget surveillance team. People in the neighborhood pretended not to notice. Even my neighbor, a kind older woman named Janice, whispered one morning, "You should just let them check. They don't like being ignored." She looked around when she said it, like someone might be listening. That was the first moment I felt it. That old instinct waking up inside me. The one that says someone isn't just crossing a boundary, they're testing how far they can push before you push back. I try to be a normal civilian about it. I really did. I read the actual HOA charter front to back. No compliance unit. No Section 4F. No inspections without written notice. Whoever these guys were, they weren't HOA. And they sure as hell weren't legitimate. The real turn didn't happen until I found a notice pinned to my front door with a knife. Not stabbed in. Not dramatically. Just pressed into the wood deep enough that I had to yank to pull it free. The paper read, "Final warning. Failure to comply will result in removal." Removal. I swear my hands didn't shake, but something colder than anger settled in my chest. I'd spent 2 decades dealing with men who hide behind fake authority, men who think rules don't apply to them because nobody ever stood up and said enough. Now those men were on my porch, and whether I liked it or not, they'd picked the wrong house. Still, I gave them one last chance at civility. I made a call to the actual HOA board. The real one. The older woman who answered had a soft voice that cracked when I read her the notice. "Sir," she said, "we don't have an enforcement unit. And we don't send inspectors. Someone is impersonating the HOA. We've contacted the county, but, well, they haven't responded." "Why not?" I asked. "Because Riverbend Ridge is a private development. They don't like stepping on toes." Right then, something clicked into place. When law has no doorway in, criminals walk through the walls. I'd been sitting on the couch, half watching an old western, half listening to the wind, when a crunch sounded outside. Not a knock. A footstep. Slow. Heavy. I clicked the TV off. Darkness settled like a blanket. Another step. Then a third. I stood and moved toward the hallway where the shadows were thicker. Their voices came faint through the door. Back window's clear. Kitchen too. He's in there. Just do it. The door didn't burst open in one dramatic kick like in the movies. Real life is messy, eh? The first hit cracked the frame. The second sent shards of wood raining onto the floor. I stepped back just as the third blow swung the door inward, and 3 silhouettes rushed inside. Flashlights. Polos. Boots. The same men, but this time they weren't pretending to be polite. RRA compliance, the tall one barked. You were given notice. You didn't comply. You need to come with us, the bearded one added. We're authorized to remove non-compliant residents. My laugh came out colder than I intended. Authorized by who? The tall one smirked. You'll find out. He stepped closer, flashlight beam running across my face like a scanner. We try to do this the easy way, man. You're the one who made it messy. He reached for me, hand out like he was grabbing a disobedient child. And there it was, the moment everything went red. I didn't shout. I didn't warn. I didn't debate HOA bylaws. Training kicks in long before emotion. I stepped inside his reach, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and drove my shoulder into his chest. He hit the floor hard enough to rattle picture frames. The bearded one swung at me wild, telegraphed, predictable. I ducked and shoved him into the wall. His flashlight clattered across the hardwood, spinning until the beam shone straight up through the dust. The third guy hesitated, just long enough for me to see what he really was, a follower, not a fighter. He backed toward the doorway, hands shaking. We weren't going to hurt you, he said, voice cracking. We just have orders. From who? I demanded. He swallowed, looked at the floor, and ran. I reached the doorway just in time to see his tail lights fishtail down the street, the golf cart sitting abandoned on my lawn like some kind of taunt. The 2 men on my floor were groaning, cursing, trying to push themselves up. I zip-tied their wrists with the ties I'd kept buried in a drawer for years, the kind you hope you never use again. As I dragged them outside, the tall one spat blood and snarled. You're done. You don't know who runs this neighborhood. I know who doesn't, I said. You. By the time the sheriff arrived, lights bouncing off every window on the street. Neighbors were peeking through blinds like it was a free horror show they didn't want to admit they bought tickets to. The deputy took one look at the men tied up on my lawn and raised an eyebrow. They tried to break in, I said plainly. They impersonated the HOA. One of the men screamed. He attacked us first. I pointed at my busted door. Sure I did. The sheriff arrived minutes later, an older man with tired eyes that had seen more than his badge wanted to admit. He listened carefully, inspected the door, examined the fake badges, sighed deep into his chest. These boys have been causing trouble in 3 counties, he said. They start with notices, then fees, then intimidation. Folks get scared. Some pay. Some leave. We've been chasing shadows. He nodded toward the men. Looks like you finally caught one. I thought that was the end. A clean takedown, a report, a patch job on my door, life goes on. But that's not how stories like this work. When small men fail, the bigger men behind them start paying attention. 3 days later, I found a single sheet of paper on my doorstep. No threats, no symbols, just 5 words, typed neatly in the center. You should have complied, James. My name, my real name, not on any mailbox, not in any HOA directory, not in any public listing. That cold feeling returned. The one that tells you someone has been inside your life long before they stepped onto your porch. I took the note straight to the sheriff. He frowned and rubbed his jaw. This ain't them, he said quietly. The guys you caught don't type. They barely spell. So who does? I asked. He shook his head. Someone higher. Someone organized. Someone who doesn't like you standing up. That night, I sat on my porch with the lights off and listened. Wind. Crickets. A car somewhere far off on the main road. For a minute, I let myself believe maybe the sheriff was wrong. Maybe the note was just noise. Then a black sedan rolled slowly past my house. Windows tinted, engine quiet. It didn't stop, didn't speed up, just moved slow enough that I could feel the eyes inside turn toward me. Watching, measuring, and the silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the sound of a line being drawn. Not the hot, reckless kind, but the cold, calculated kind that comes when you've had enough of being pushed. I knew they'd be back. People like that never stop at hints. They escalate. So I prepared quietly, reinforced the locks, Installed cameras no one could see. Sat at the window some nights with a cup of coffee that went cold in my hands. And I waited. They came on a Wednesday around midnight. Not the golf cart boys this time. 3 men in tactical jackets with a fake HOA emblem stitched on the sleeve. They moved like they'd rehearsed, fast and coordinated. One approached the front door. 2 circled to the back. My heart didn't race. It slowed. And when the first one pried open my back latch, I was already there. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him to the floor. His partner lunged. I tackled him into the cabinets so hard the spice rack collapsed. The third man rushed in from the hallway, gun raised. Not a fake one. Not plastic or airsoft. Real steel, real weight, real intention. Time slowed. Breath, grip, angle. Training is a funny thing. You forget birthdays, but your body never forgets how to survive. I disarmed him, pinned him, and when he finally stopped fighting, he whispered the words I'd been waiting for. The name. Marcus Hale, he gasped. He runs everything. He wants you out. Marcus Hale, developer, former HOA president, the man who built half the community, the man who vanished from public meetings 2 years ago but kept calling the shots from behind the scenes, a man who believed Riverbend Ridge was his personal kingdom, a man who didn't like anyone refusing his authority. I drove straight to the sheriff's office. Walked in with bruises on my jaw and 3 fake agents in my truck bed. The sheriff listened to me, looked at the men, and sighed the tired sigh of someone who'd been waiting for a problem big enough to justify what came next. Looks like we've got enough to move, he said. That night, deputies raided Hale's private office on the edge of town. Inside, they found files on residents, forged notices, payment logs, photos of people's houses, even drafts of eviction letters he planned to distribute under his fake enforcement wing. For months, he'd been shaking down vulnerable residents, forcing some to sell, taking kickbacks for every property he regained control over. And when people pushed back, he sent his hired muscle. The whole thing came crashing down in a matter of hours. Hale was arrested trying to slip out through a side entrance, wearing a suit like he was heading to a board meeting instead of running a criminal ring. The story made the local paper under a quiet headline about fraud and impersonation, but neighbors knew. And they talked. And they stared. Some in gratitude. Some in guilt. Some in fear that someone like Hale could rise in a place that looked so peaceful. When it was all over, the real HOA sent me a letter. A polite one. Thanking me for assisting in restoring integrity to the community. They also kindly reminded me that firearms weren't permitted in common areas. I laughed so hard I nearly tore the page. My house quieted again after that. Peace returned. Kind of. I rebuilt the door, repainted the siding, fixed a crack in the floor the fight had left behind. People waved at me again, but with a different kind of smile. The kind people give when they realize the quiet neighbor on Willow Trace wasn't someone to push. And life did get better. Simpler. Softer around the edges. But here's the part nobody wants to talk about. The ending people don't like in their stories. Hale wasn't the only one. He was just the one who got sloppy. The one who underestimated the wrong man. Some nights, when the wind hits right, I swear I can hear a golf cart engine somewhere down Willow Trace, quiet, waiting. And sometimes I wonder, how many neighborhoods have their own Hale? How many people are scared into silence because someone wearing a cheap badge told them to be? So let me ask you something. If somebody like that knocked on your door, no warrant, no authority, just fake confidence and a uniform they stitched together at home, would you comply? Or would you stand up? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Where's the line between keeping order and abusing power? And who decides when enough is enough?